Hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking at Proton's privacy policy. This is a companion to my main channel video titled Privacy for Sale. As we discussed in that video, Proton is an ecosystem service with privacy at its core. You can think of it like Google, but private. As is tradition, I want to set some expectations before we get started. We will be using the Privacy Visualizer tool I made to better help us retain what has been read. If you want to follow along, you can pull it up yourself by going to privacyvisualizer.com or by following the link in the description, which also has all the related links to the reading of this privacy policy. As a quick recap, we will use blue to represent data that is collected, yellow for shared data, and red for sold data. We'll be using the definition of sold as described in the California Consumer Privacy Act, otherwise known as the CCPA. As we do in all recordings on this channel, we will be reading this with the assumption of worst-case scenario. This means that if they mention some data is optional, we will treat it as if it were collected, shared, or sold, depending on the surrounding context. We're reading this from the perspective of someone who clicks yes on whatever pop-ups might come up. The one exception will be for business-to-business things. Most businesses come up with their own contracts and policies, so it is not really relevant to the average person. Most people are not representing businesses, so we will ignore those sections if they come up. As a reminder, the purpose of the Privacy Visualizer is to help us retain what we've read. It is not meant to summarize what we've read to others. You'll see as we read along that it oversimplifies things too much, and it doesn't give you the full picture like this video would in its entirety. We will review the Privacy Visualizer at the end of this video, but that is just to remind us why those items were checked. Please avoid using the Privacy Visualizer as a tool to summarize privacy policies. It is a tool to help you read privacy policies. If you want to learn more about that, check out the video on the main channel here. Alright, with that out of the way, let's dive into their first policy. We'll start by visiting their main website, proton.me. Then, we'll scroll down to the bottom of the page and click the smallest and hardest to read link right here at the bottom. Nothing screams transparency like making the link to your privacy policy very small and low contrast. Privacy policy. Last modified on the 2nd of March, 2026. At Proton, we strongly believe in an internet where privacy is the default. Proton's privacy policy describes how Proton collects, uses, and deletes your data. In addition to this privacy policy, we provide data and privacy information specific to our products that we use your personal data. This product-specific information can be found in the following privacy policies. And then we have a big list of documents. We'll look into these other documents a bit later on in this video. By using the Proton.me or Proton VPN website and making use of a Proton account, which will be known as Account moving forward, and all its related features including Proton Mail, Proton Calendar, Proton Drive, Proton VPN, and Proton Pass, which will be called services moving forward, and other services like Proton Wallet operated by Proton Financial AG, you understand that your data in relation with your use of our services is processed according to the following privacy policy and its product-specific privacy policies, which together are referred to as just privacy policy, even though it's 9 different documents. The privacy policy states, 1. What data we collect through your access and uses of the services. 2. The use we make of such data. And 3. The safeguards put into place to protect your data. The privacy policy is to be read and understood as being a complement to our terms of service. Legal framework. The services are operated by Proton AG, which they will call the company or we in the rest of this document. Domiciled at their address in Switzerland. It is therefore governed by the laws and regulation of Switzerland. Additional information about the legal framework can be found in our transparency report. We are also GDPR compliant. The designated representative of the company in the European Union, notably for the purpose of Article 27 in the GDPR, is all of that stuff in Luxembourg. Data Proton collects from you and how we use it. Our overriding policy is to collect as little user information, personal data included, as possible to ensure a private user experience when using the services. We do not have the technical means to access the content of your encrypted files, emails, calendar events, passwords, or notes. As we discussed in the main channel video, this is true, but we need to pay attention to what they say there. Encryption is handled end-to-end, meaning that the only person who can see the encrypted data is you and whoever you share the data with. If there is anything that is not encrypted, they do have the means to access those things. We will learn more about what that looks like a little later on in the policy. Data collection is limited to the following. Section 2.1. Visiting proton.me or protonvpn.com website. We employ a local installation of self-deployed analytics tools. Analytics are anonymized whenever possible and stored locally and not on the cloud. IP addresses are not retained and stored for such analytics. Third-party services may process your data to deliver images displayed on our website. So this one is kind of interesting, as they're saying they don't use a third party to handle analytics in the cloud. This does not mean it is local to you. It means that it's local to them, so it's still someone else's computer. I do like that they are clear that IP addresses are not retained, so we actually won't be able to mark anything for this one. However, whenever possible implies that some identifiers cannot be anonymized. Since it's not crystal clear to me, I'm going to mark off identifiers on the privacy visualizer. Also, they state right here that third parties may process your data, so we're going to count that as shared data. That last sentence was not there when I wrote my notes for this policy. They changed it just a few weeks ago. Section 2.2. Account creation. Depending on the services you want to use, you can either create a Proton account with a Proton Mail address or use an external account non-Proton address. Creating a Proton account will give you access to all of our services. It is not necessary to provide personal information in order to create an account. You can provide an external email address for notification or password recovery purposes. Should you choose to provide it, we associate this email address with your account for password recovery or notification purposes. Such data will only be used to contact you with important notifications about the services, to send you information related to security, to verify your account, or to send you password recovery links if you enable the option. We may also inform you about Proton products in which you might have an interest. The legal basis for processing is consent, and you are free to modify this in your account settings panel at any time. So again, since we are assuming worst-case scenario, we will say that they do collect contact information. The situation where this would be true is if you choose to provide it to them, so that's worth keeping in mind. You also have the possibility to use our Proton VPN, Drive, and Pass services with an external email address. In this case, you have to provide your external address, which will be used as your account identifier. You can choose at any moment to create a Proton email address for this account to use Proton Mail and Calendar too. Your email will only be used to contact you with important notifications about the services, to send you information related to security, to verify your account, or to send you password recovery links if you enable the option. We may also inform you about Proton products in which you might have an interest. The legal basis for processing is consent, and you are free to modify this in your account settings panel at any time. In order to pursue our legitimate interest of preventing the creation of accounts by spam bots or human spammers, we use a variety of human verification methods. Verification may also be requested for some sensitive operations beside account creation in order to protect against brute force attacks. You may be asked to verify using either Proton CAPTCHA, email, or SMS. IP addresses, email addresses, and phone numbers provided are saved temporarily in order to send you a verification code for anti-spam purposes. The period of temporary data retention is determined by our legitimate interests of protecting the service from spam and also by any applicable Swiss legal requirements we must comply with. If this data is saved permanently, it is always saved as a cryptographic hash, which ensures that the raw values cannot be deciphered by us. Learn more about that at the link here. So this data would fit into the contact information that we've already selected. Section 2.3, Referral Program. Proton has a referral program that is open to Proton users, publications, nonprofit organizations, etc. If you are coming to Proton via such a referral program, your subscription may be attributed to the referrer. Some referrals are managed internally by Proton, while others may rely on third-party platforms used by the referrers, and if you are coming to Proton via a referrer, our site may communicate with such referrer platforms for the purpose of crediting referrers. Referrals are rather common for this kind of product, and it's kind of hard to pinpoint where this would fit in regards to collected data. Well, that's what other data's for. Section 2.4, Account Activity. The processing activities carried out by Proton for the operation of our different services may vary depending on the service. These activities are described in the specific services privacy policies. We may use the data mentioned above and below to detect abusive and fraudulent use of our services and take appropriate measures. The legal basis of this processing is our legitimate interest to protect our service against non-compliant or fraudulent activities. So it looks like we won't get a lot of detail yet about this. That said, things like account activity as the title of this section and the words like may use do imply that usage data is collected. Section 2.5, IP logging. By default, we do not keep permanent IP logs in relation with your account. However, IP logs may be kept temporarily to combat abuse and fraud, and your IP address may be retained permanently if you are engaged in such activities that breach our terms of service. For example, spamming, DDoS attacks against our infrastructure, brute force attacks. The legal basis of this processing is our legitimate interest to protect our service against non-compliant or fraudulent activities. If you enable authentication logging for your account or voluntarily participate in Proton's advanced security program, the record of your login IP address is kept for as long as the feature is enabled. This feature is off by default, and all the records are deleted upon deactivation of the feature. The legal basis of this processing is consent, and you are free to opt in or out of that processing at any time in the security panel of your account. The authentication logs feature records login attempts to your account and does not track product-specific activities such as VPN activity. So that was a much more concrete example of usage data, so we will keep that marked. We will also mark off location data for that IP address, but keep in mind that it is just coarse location data. This is enough to clarify what city you're in, but that's about it. Also, keep in mind that an IP address can be used to cross-reference your usage of other services. We'll have a look at an example of this in a moment. Section 2.6, Communicating with Proton. Your communications with us, such as support requests, bug reports, or feature requests, may be saved by our staff. We may also rely on third parties, such as Zendesk or Calendly, see below. I'll note real quick that Calendly is not mentioned in the section below that they're referring to. Zendesk is there, but this is the only time they reference Calendly in the entire policy. If you use Proton's live chat support, you consent to have the data contained within your live chat interaction processed by Zendesk, the provider of Proton's live chat support platform. The legal basis for processing is our legitimate interest to troubleshoot more efficiently and improve the quality of our services. The information you provide when you contact our support team is processed for analytics purposes, such as to obtain aggregate statistics, but we do not do any targeted advertising or any profiling. So customer support data normally falls under user content, since it's the stuff a user would normally provide to a support team. We will also add contact info, since they'll need your contact info to support you. We're going to ignore shared information for now, since there is a dedicated section on it a little bit later. Section 2.7, Communicating with Proton's sales team. Okay, so like I said at the start, we're going to ignore business things, since most people signing up for Proton are not representing businesses. Section 2.8, Communications from Proton. We mainly use your email address for account-related questions, communication, and recovery. By signing up to our service, you agree to receive communication from us, which may include promotional emails. You can stop receiving emails from us by following the unsubscribe instructions included in every email we send. Alternatively, you can log into your Proton dashboard and adjust your email preferences under the Account tab. Again, this is just contact info. Section 2.9, Payment information. We rely on Chargebee to process payments. Strictly necessary information is shared with Chargebee for credit card, PayPal, Stripe, and Bitcoin transactions in order for the payment to be successful and associated with your account. Chargebee does not have access to your email or your Proton account information. We rely on third parties to process credit card, PayPal, and Bitcoin transactions and must therefore share payment information with them. We do not retain full credit card details. We only save your name and the last 4 digits of the credit card number. Anonymous cash or Bitcoin payments and donations are accepted. We may use your account data for payment-related matters, including but not limited to sending you emails, invoices, receipts, notices of delinquency, and alerts to update payment information. The legal basis of these processing activities is the necessity to the execution of the contract to provide the services. In order to respect the principle of our data minimization, we reserve our right to remove payment information from our system that is no longer valid without notice. We can mark financial data for your card details and contact information for your name. Even though this is limited data collection, this kind of data still can be cross-referenced. Payment data is the very data that was cross-referenced by the FBI recently, as was described by 404 Media. This was enough user data for the FBI to match up with the data they had already obtained to identify a user, and that user was arrested. Now, to be clear, this isn't just a Proton issue. This is true for all of the services you are on. This is why I talked so much about aliases in the main channel video. When you mix some of those other tools I mentioned, it can help prevent this cross-referencing of data, but it's never perfect. Proton here is a great example. They greatly limit the information they have, but even that was enough to be helpful to complete the puzzle that the FBI was trying to solve. Proton really needs to do a better job of making that clear on their other pages, because the website sure makes it sound like you're perfectly protected, but that's not really a thing. You have the potential to be better protected, but you're not perfectly protected. Getting back to the visualizer, we also have to mark this off as shared data since third parties are directly mentioned to handle this data. Section 2.10, Native Applications. When you use our native applications, including mobile and desktop versions, we, or platform and operating system providers, may collect certain technical information. We may use analytic software, app statistics, and crash reporting or other tools to help diagnose problems, send information to our developers in order to rapidly fix bugs, and improve our services. Some platforms and system components, such as Google Play Store or Apple's App Store, may also collect aggregate, anonymous statistics which may be governed by their respective privacy policies and terms of service. Such statistics can include most commonly used devices and operating systems, total number of installs and uninstalls, and the total number of active users. Our applications do not access or track any location-based information from your device. Alright, that falls under usage data and diagnostics. Section 2.11, Proton Scribe. Proton Scribe is a feature that allows you to use our self-developed writing assistant to help you compose your messages or documents. By default, this feature operates locally on your device. You also have the possibility to have it operate server-side, in which case, the only minimal data is necessary to make our service function will be shared with the servers. No log, account data, or content details will be stored on our servers. Proton Scribe does not use content data in any of your data to train its models. I'm glad they clarified that. They probably should mention the term AI somewhere in there, but whatever. Section 2.12, Dark Web Monitor. Dark Web Monitor is an opt-in feature that scans hidden parts of the internet for breached or stolen personal data in relation with your account. When you activate this feature, our systems will scan data associated with your account, such as email addresses, usernames, phone numbers, against our own threat intelligence datasets and inform you of any detection. No user data is ever shared with third parties in that process. Once again, this information is just contact information and identifiers. Section 2.13, Social Media. We are active on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit, and Mastodon. They should probably update this. They're also active on BlueSky. I recently criticized one of their new ads over there. Any information, communication, or material you submit to us via social media platforms is done at your own risk without any guarantee of privacy. We cannot control the actions of other users on these platforms or the actions of the platforms themselves. Your interactions with those features and platforms are governed by the privacy policies of the companies that provide them. Section 214, Links to other websites and embedded content. Our website may contain links to other websites of interest. However, we are not responsible for the content of any website that we link to, and external sites are governed by their own terms of service and privacy policies. We may use third parties to provide embedded content, for example, pictures, on our website which may collect information about you. The legal basis for this processing is our legitimate interest to operate our website economically. So that last thing, embedding pictures that may collect information about you, would be considered cookies. I'm not sure why they don't call it as such. These images can be used to track you between multiple websites, so we will be marking this off as browsing history. If you want to learn more about how this works, I greatly encourage you to watch the main channel video about internet cookies. Link is always in the description. Section 3. Network traffic that may go through third parties. Proton's alternative routing technology allows Proton services to bypass many censorship blocks, but in doing so, your network traffic may go through third-party networks, which we do not control. This could enable a third party to record your IP address or see that you are using Proton apps, which is the same information that your internet service provider is able to see. These third parties cannot see your actual data, which will remain encrypted. By default, alternative routing is not used for Proton apps unless they detect that censorship measures are active on your network. Alternative routing can also be disabled in the settings panel of our mobile and desktop applications. However, doing so may cause you to be unable to access your account from a network that is censoring Proton. Alright, so this is more of a side effect on how the internet works as a whole. Like, this is true for my website, YouTube, everything. In the VPN video I made, I mentioned this whole thing with the URL of a video. The start of the URL is HTTPS. The S in that is what makes this possible. When you visit a website, your internet service provider can see that you went to that website, but they can't see what page you're looking at. So, for this video that you're watching right now, your internet service provider just sees youtube.com, even though you're watching a specific video. If it was just HTTP, they could see the whole URL. Section 4. Data processors. To provide the services, we rely on different data processors, which process different categories of data. Processors never store data outside of the scope of their specific purpose. Notably, they do not store data in relation with the general day-to-day use of your account and services, which is exclusively processed by the company. Processors are as follow. This is a section that I actually really appreciate. They show us all the companies that are involved with your data and what role they play in handling your data. This is fantastic, and I wish other companies did the same thing. The first ones we will look at are organizations that are owned by Proton, so it's data that is handled in-house. Section 4.1. Proton Group Processors. Proton Labs Dual Scope. The purpose? Process data in relation with customer support requests or direct communications with the company, which is the data referred to in Section 2.6. As a reminder, that was user content and contact information on the privacy visualizer. The data processing location is Macedonia. Proton Labs Taiwan. The purpose? Process data in relation with customer support requests or other direct communications with the company. Once again, the data in 2.6. The data processing location is Taiwan. The next group we're going to look at are third-party processors, which are companies that Proton shares your data with. Any categories mentioned here will be marked off as yellow for shared data. Section 4.2. Third-party processors. Zendesk. The purpose? Provide services in relation with the processing of customer support data, which again is the stuff from Section 2.6. The data processing location is the United States. The guarantees for international transfer are standard contractual clauses, binding corporate rules, and certifications. Data shared with Zendesk would also count as user content and contact info. Just a friendly reminder that back in 2024, a 15-year-old discovered several vulnerabilities in the security of Zendesk systems. He properly reported these flaws, and Zendesk claims they resolved it. However, just 1 year later, they had a massive data breach. This revealed the contact information of over 5 million users and leaked over 1.6 terabytes of data. So, that's the first company Proton shares your data with. Stripe. The purpose is to provide services in relation with the processing of payment data, which is the stuff in Section 2.8. As a reminder, that is both financial data and contact info. Data processing location is the United States. Guarantees for international transfer are standard contractual clauses, data processing agreement. Stripe has also had some issues with handling user data in the past. Around the same time as the Zendesk data breach, Stripe had their own issues where verified credit card details were being stolen. PayPal Group. The purpose is to provide services in relation with the processing of payment data, which is the same thing as Stripe, so nothing new to add here. The data processing location is the United States and Singapore. The guarantees for international transfer are standard contractual clauses and data processing agreement. PayPal just had a data breach where payment information, contact information, and even sensitive data were being accessed for 6 entire months. PayPal claims this only impacted 100 people, but don't forget, in 2023, they had a similar breach that impacted 35,000 people. Charge B. The purpose is to provide services in relation with the processing of payment data, same as the other payment processors. The data processing location is just the United States. The guarantees for international transfer are standard contractual clauses and data processing agreement. So, some good news, Charge B is the only company on this list that does not yet have a confirmed data breach. Yay. Atlassian. The purpose is to store data in relation with customer support. The data processing locations are the European Union, the United States, and the United Kingdom. The guarantees for international transfer are adequacy decision, standard contractual clauses, and certifications. So this is going to be the same data as Zendesk, so user content and contact info. Back in 2023, Atlassian did have a pretty notable data breach as well. I have links to all the breaches I mentioned in the description for you to learn more about how your data has been historically mishandled by these companies. Now, I want to point something out before we continue. This is not to be extra harsh to Proton. Proton happens to have given us the names of the platforms they use to handle user data, which allows us to make a more informed decision. I honestly love that Proton shares that information in this policy. That actually feels like proper transparency, which I know they are capable of doing. Any company that shares data with other partners has the same things to worry about. The difference here is that Proton has actually told us who these companies are. I have mad respect for that. Section 5. Data disclosure. We only disclose the limited user data we process if we are legally obligated to do so by a binding request coming from the competent Swiss authorities. We may comply with electronically delivered notices when only they are delivered in full compliance with the requirements of Swiss law. Proton's general policy is to challenge requests whenever possible and when there are doubts as to the validity of the request or if there is public interest in doing so. In such situations, we will not comply with the request until all legal or other remedies have been exhausted. Under Swiss law, subjects of judicial procedures have to be notified of such procedures, although such notifications has to come from the authorities and not from the company. Under no circumstances can Proton decrypt end-to-end encrypted content and disclose decrypted copies. Aggregate statistics about data requests from the competent Swiss authorities can be found in the transparency reports listed in our product-specific policies. Section 6. Your privacy rights at Proton. Through your account interface, you can directly access, edit, delete, or export personal data processed by the company in your use of the services. If your account has been suspended for a breach of our terms of service, and you would like to exercise the rights related to your personal data, you can make a request to our support team. In case of violation of your rights, you have the right to lodge a complaint to the competent supervisory authority. Section 7. Modifications to privacy policy. Within the limits of applicable law, the company reserves the right to review and change this policy at any time. As long as you are using the services, you are responsible for regularly reviewing this privacy policy. Continued use of the services after such changes are performed shall constitute your consent to it. Ah, yes, our favorite line here. It is your responsibility to read this policy, and I love that they won't even tell you when they update it. But hey, if you keep using Proton, you must consent to this policy all the time, right? Because you read it all the time, right? Well, that's certainly pretty normal, but I wouldn't say it's normal for a company who is this loud about being so transparent. Surely that's the only issue we'll face with transparency with this policy. Surely there's nothing else, as we're pretty much done. Just one sentence left. In case of discrepancy between the English versions of these terms and any translated version, the English version shall prevail. Okay, fantastic. We're at the end of the policy. Thanks for watching. If you have any suggestions for... hang on. There's something we're missing. Oh yes, that's right. I forgot. Proton separates their privacy policy into 9 separate documents. Shoot. Looks like we ran into another transparency issue on the website that has the word transparency plastered on almost every sales page. I wonder if there's a name for this sort of thing, like a pattern of behavior that might be considered dark in its intention. Well, I'm sure someone will think of something. Since Proton wants most people to pay for the full suite of apps, we'd better read the rest of these. Starting at the top, Proton Mail. Proton Mail Privacy Policy. Last modified July 31st, 2025. This sub-policy is an integral part of the Proton Privacy Policy. It details the data processing activities specifically related to the creation and activity of your Proton account when you use Proton Mail. Account activity. Due to the limitations of SMTP protocol, we have access to the following email metadata: sender and recipient email addresses, the IP address incoming messages originated from, attachment name, message subject, and messages sent and received times. We do not have access to encrypted message content, but the unencrypted messages sent from an external provider to your account or from Proton Mail to an external unencrypted email service are scanned for spam and viruses to pursue the legitimate interest of protecting the integrity of our services and users. Such inbound messages are scanned for spam in memory and then encrypted and written to disk. We do not possess the technical ability to scan the content of messages after they've been encrypted. We also have access to the following records of account activity: number of messages sent, amount of storage space used, total number of messages, and last login time. User data is never used for advertising purposes, so we're going to have to mark up a couple of things here. Identifiers for your IP address, user content for the contents of non-encrypted emails, which is notably all emails sent to and from anyone not using an encrypted email service, which is most of them. They do mention that they later encrypt that, but there's a stage where it isn't. And historically, we count the collection of encrypted data as collected data. Easy Switch with sign-in with Google. When you use our Easy Switch tool to import your data from Google and authenticate using the sign-in with Google option, Easy Switch's processing of information received from Google's APIs will be performed in accordance with Google API Service User Data Policy, including the limited use requirements. Well, that's not a lot of detail. Again, this is optional, but the lack of clarity here is a little upsetting. Like, not even a link to Google's policy? Really? Easy Switch with username and password combination. When you use our Easy Switch tool to import your emails from another service provider, the credentials of the email account from which the importation is performed are stored by us for the limited duration of importation. Once the importation is performed, those credentials are entirely deleted from our systems. Okay. So we can mark off identifiers, and I would consider passwords to be sensitive data since that's direct access to a third-party account. Data security. Servers used in connection with the Proton Mail service are wholly owned and operated by Proton or our subsidiaries. Access to the infrastructure and servers used by Proton Mail is tightly controlled. Only employees of Proton have physical or other access to the servers. Data is always stored in an encrypted format on our servers, which are exclusively located in Switzerland or Germany under the protection of some of the world's strongest privacy laws. Offline backups, which may also be stored periodically, are also encrypted. We cannot decrypt any user-encrypted content on either the production servers or in the backups. Backups are kept for up to 30 days. If you use Hide My Email aliases provided by Simple Login or Proton Pass, some of that functionality is hosted on European cloud servers contracted through Proton subsidiary Simple Login SAS and not on infrastructure that is wholly owned by Proton. Hide My Email aliases only relay emails and do not store any emails. So contact info is shared with third parties, but those are only aliases. It's still a way to contact you though, so I will count it. Transparency Report. Information about law enforcement requests can be found at the Proton Mail Transparency Report. Moving on, Proton Drive Privacy Policy. Last modified July 31st, 2025. Okay, so this paragraph is going to be the same across all of these, so I'm just going to start skipping it from here on out, unless something is different. Account activity. All files in Proton Drive are protected with end-to-end encryption, and Proton does not possess the ability to decrypt end-to-end encrypted data, and therefore cannot share them with third parties. Furthermore, metadata such as file names, folder names, thumbnail previews are also end-to-end encrypted. We also only store the size of the encrypted files and not the size of the original unencrypted files, which is therefore obfuscated in our system. In addition to end-to-end encryption, all content is also cryptographically signed. This means that you can always check the signature of any content you receive from our servers, which protects you from forgery. For example, by a malicious actor. In order to operate the service and support some of the required features, we do have access to file or folder creation and modification times, permissions, and the usernames that created or uploaded a particular file. which is required in order to perform cryptographic signature checks in order to verify file authenticity. So that'll be user content, but it is encrypted, so that's cool. When sharing URLs, we have access to the creation and the last access time, the number of times the URL was accessed, and to its creator. However, we do not have access to file contents, file and folder names, and thumbnail previews. Such data is end-to-end encrypted. We can only share the contents of a shared file or folder if a sharing URL is sent to us by a third party that themselves has access to the shared file, along with access to the password if enabled. This access can happen from time to time, for instance, if the third party is reporting abuse to us. So we're going to count that time the URL is accessed as usage data, and then user content if the content is reported. Note, if you trash a file, it is not actually deleted until you permanently delete it from the trash. Furthermore, if Proton Drive's file versioning feature is activated, overwriting a file will not delete the previous version, which will remain available until it is permanently deleted by the user. Data security. Again, this is the same as the last one, just replace Proton Mail with Proton Drive, and then it's the same thing. We will skip anything that repeats to save time. Proton Calendar Privacy Policy, last modified July 31st, 2025. Account activity. Proton Calendar uses end-to-end encryption to protect your calendar, and due to the encryption utilized, we do not possess the ability to decrypt any of your encrypted data. End-to-end encryption is used to protect event titles or summaries, descriptions, locations, and attendees' identifiers, such as their email addresses. The service does need to have access to some less sensitive event properties in order to send notifications and alarms to calendar users. For these purposes, we have access to the event start and end times, including the time zone, repetition rules, for example, if an event reoccurs weekly, event creation and update times, and event status, for example, if an event is canceled. Data fields are also cryptographically signed in order to prevent event tampering or manipulation by a third party. Alright, we're going to call that other data since it's so specific to calendar event rules. Easy switch with sign-in with Google. When you use our Easy Switch tool to import your data from Google and authenticate using the Sign in with Google option, Easy Switch's processing of information received from Google's APIs will be performed in accordance with Google API Service User Data Policy, including the limited use requirements. Once again, it would be great to see more detail here, or at least a link to the policy referenced. Data security, once again, this is the same as the other ones, with the exception of this last paragraph here. Furthermore, Proton physically owns and operates all secure core servers and a majority of our VPN servers in Switzerland and Germany and Norway. Proton-owned servers can be identified by IP address, which identify Proton AG as the internet service provider. Proton VPN Privacy Policy, last modified July 30th, 2025. Account activity. Proton VPN is a no-logs VPN service. When you use the service, we do not do any of the following: log users' traffic or the content of any communications, discriminate against devices, protocols, or applications, throttle your internet connection. Our free VPN service is also covered by our no-logs policy and has, in general, no speed restrictions. We do reserve the right to impose speed restrictions in case of excessive consumption in order to ensure service quality for all users on free servers. You can find details about our no-logs VPN policy here. And since I believe it's important to also hear this policy, I will read that now. Does Proton VPN keep logs? Well, that's a bad name for no-logs VPN policy, but what do I know? I'm only trying to understand how they handle data. In order to respect our users' privacy, Proton VPN enforces a strict no-logs policy. This means we keep no session usage logs of what you do online, and we do not log metadata that can compromise your privacy. We don't log which websites you visit. We don't log the traffic or the content in any communications. We don't log your IP address. We don't log your session lengths. We don't log or track any location-based information. This level of privacy is possible in part because we are based in Switzerland, which has some of the strongest data protection and digital privacy laws in the world. Data required for the maintenance and troubleshooting purposes is secured using full disk encryption on all our bare metal servers, over which we have full control. Full details about the information we do store, such as account information, are available in our privacy policy. Our apps are fully open source and independently audited so that you can be sure they are trustworthy. And we aim for transparency in everything we do. Hey, there's that good old word, transparency. It's really funny to see that in a policy within a policy within a policy. Super transparent stuff. Proton VPN's Swiss jurisdiction also confers additional benefits which are favorable for VPN services. In most countries, VPNs can be forced to log the results of government orders even if they are default no logs. However, within the current Swiss legal framework, Proton VPN also does not have any forced obligations. This notably differs from other Swiss regulations for other online services, such as email, which is generally not no logs and can require IP disclosure in the event of a Swiss criminal investigation. That's why, if your threat model requires hiding your IP from Swiss authorities when using Proton Mail, we recommend using a VPN or Tor. I'm glad they actually say that here. That is actually transparent. That said, it should be on the sales page, not just here. Proton VPN's strict no-logs policy was tested in a legal case in 2019 where we were ordered to turn over logs to help identify a user we were unable to comply with because such logs did not exist. Our no-logs policy has also been verified by external independent experts. Okay, so I have some things to say about that 2019 legal case. To me, that reads that Proton was tested legally about this policy. But here's the thing. As far as I can tell, it wasn't. I had multiple people look into this, including my lawyer, and this is all we were able to find. This is the actual case they allude to on their website. Now, I'll have to summarize this one since we're very deep into this reading, but pretty much, another company was sued, and because of it, it's case law. So, if Proton was sued, they would be allowed to not collect logs, kind of thing. They haven't actually been sued over this as far as we could tell. The case is a universal Swiss law thing, so it just applies to them. Once again, a classic example of you gotta pay attention to what they're saying. Okay, back to the Proton VPN privacy policy. All Proton VPN servers are encrypted, and we do not log VPN session data. Transparency report. Information about law enforcement data requests can be found in the Proton VPN Transparency Report and Warrant Canary. Data security, and this is once again the same as the rest. I can understand why this policy is separated, since this goes more against the main policy in regards to IP logging. They could make it work in the other one though, so I don't know. Also, the no logs policy really should be within this privacy policy, not its own document hidden within a privacy that's hidden within a privacy policy. Right now, it's adding yet another document for us to read, which is incredibly frustrating as a user. Proton Pass, privacy policy. Last modified July 31st, 2025. Account activity. All data stored in Proton Pass, including credentials, passwords, and notes, are end-to-end encrypted, and Proton does not possess the ability to decrypt end-to-end encrypted data. Metadata is encrypted as well. In order for the alias forwarding option to function properly, alias addresses created in Proton Pass are not encrypted. These aliases are retained for as long as you don't delete them. This processing of data relies on the performance of our contract of services. Alright, so that's going to be contact info for the aliases. If you use Proton Pass with an external email address, this address will be used as a basis for the creation of your alias. Once again, we're going to call that contact info. When sharing your vault with another user, you share your vault key, which is encrypted with your recipient's address key, ensuring only they can access it. Learn more about our encryption models in Proton Pass. Data security. Okay, so this one is slightly different, so we'll actually read this one. Data storage servers used in connection with the Proton Pass are wholly owned and operated by Proton or our subsidiaries. Access to this infrastructure is tightly controlled. Only employees of Proton have physical or other access to the servers. Data is always stored in an encrypted format on our servers, which are exclusively located in Switzerland, Germany, or Norway under the protection of some of the world's strongest privacy laws. Offline backups, which may be stored periodically, also are encrypted. We cannot decrypt any user-encrypted content on either the production servers or in the backups. Backups are kept for up to 30 days. If you use Hide My Email aliases provided by Proton Pass, some of that functionality is hosted on European cloud servers contracted through Proton's wholly owned subsidiary, Simple Login SAS, and not on infrastructure that is owned by Proton itself. Hide My Email aliases only relay emails and do not store any emails. Proton Wallet, privacy policy. Last modified July 24th, 2024. The first paragraph is the same as the first paragraph as the main policy, so we will skip this one. Section 1, legal framework. This one is also the same, except for this last sentence. Proton Financial AG is a wholly owned subsidiary of Proton AG, whose primary shareholder is the nonprofit Proton Foundation, based in Geneva, Switzerland. If you want to learn more about the nonprofit shenanigans here, check out the main channel video here. Section 2. Data that may be collected using Proton Wallet and how they may be used. Our overriding policy is to collect as little user information, personal data included, as possible to ensure a private user experience when using the services. Data collection is limited to the following. Section 2.1. Proton Financial Data Processing Activities. In order to provide you with the services, the company processes the following data. Section 2.1.1. Account creation. Your account is linked to an email address you provide at the creation of your account. You can provide an address from a third-party provider or create a Proton Mail address as you create your account for the services. The legal basis for this processing activity is the execution of a contract. Okay, so contact info again. Section 2.1.2. Account activity. Transaction metadata that are stored on the company's servers are limited to the strictly necessary data and are stored, encrypted, on Proton servers. These metadata include transaction IDs, exchange rate, and optional notes written by you. The lawful basis of the status processing activity is legitimate interest to troubleshoot possible technical issues. So that's going to be both financial data and purchase history. If you use the Bitcoin via email feature, Proton Wallet generates a pool of Bitcoin addresses. These addresses are stored on the company's servers so that they can be communicated to the sender. Once the address has been used, it is deleted from Proton servers. The lawful basis of this data processing activity is the execution of the contract to provide you with the services. I don't know a lot about crypto stuff, so someone who knows more about that will have to validate if that's cool or not in the comments. Section 2.1.3. Payment information. If you purchase a Proton Wallet subscription, we rely on third parties to process payments. We do not retain full credit card details, only the last 4 digits of the credit card number. Anonymous cash or Bitcoin payments and donations are accepted. We may use your account data for payments-related matters, including but not limited to sending you emails, invoices, receipts, notices of delinquency, and alerts to update payment information. The legal basis of these processing activities is the necessity to the execution of the contract to provide the services. I hate that sentence. In order to respect the principle of our data minimization, we reserve our right to remove payment information from our system that is no longer valid without notice. Okay, so we have financial data, contact info, and purchase history. Section 2.1.4. Native applications. When you use our native applications, we, or the mobile app platform providers, may collect certain information. We may use mobile analytics software, app statistics, and crash reporting, Play Store app statistics, App Store app statistics, or self-hosted Sentry crash reporting to send crash information to our developers in order to rapidly fix bugs. Bugs. Some platforms, such as Google's Play Store or Apple's App Store, may also collect aggregate anonymous statistics, which may be governed by their respective privacy policies and terms and conditions. Such statistics can include most commonly used devices and operating systems, total number of installs and uninstalls, and the total number of active users. Our applications do not access or track any location-based information from your device. Well, that's all going to fall under diagnostics and usage data. Section 2.2. Potential applicability of Proton AG's privacy policy. If you use Proton Wallet via integrations with separate services provided by Proton AG, that usage may be subject to Proton's privacy policy in addition to this privacy policy. Please carefully read both policies when using the services as part of an offering from Proton AG. Oh, believe you me, we are. Section 2.3. Third-party processing activities. Section 2.3.1. Integrated services. You may access certain third-party services through the service. For example, on-ramp services that allow you to exchange fiat for crypto for use in the services. Those services are subject to their own terms and applicable privacy notices, and the company does not process any personal data in relation to them. Section 2.3.2. Use of blockchain and digital assets. Your use and/or transfer of digital assets may be recorded on a public blockchain. These blockchains are not controlled or operated by the company, and we do not have the technical capabilities to erase or modify data on them. These blockchains are publicly accessible, and their analysis can lead to identification of individuals or revelation of personal data on which we do not have any control or influence. Section 2.2.3. Social media. This is the same as the main policy. 2.4. Fraud and abuse detection. We may use the data mentioned above to detect abusive and fraudulent use of our services and may take appropriate measures. The legal basis of this processing is our legitimate interest to protect our services against non-compliant fraudulent activities. Section 3. Data subprocessors. Okay, so we already talked about all these companies, so I'm just gonna scroll past this. Section 5. Your privacy using Proton Wallet. Through your account interface, you can directly access, edit, delete, or export personal data processed by the company in your use of the services. If your account has been suspended for a breach of our own terms and conditions, and you would like to exercise the rights related to your personal data, you can make a request to our support team. In case of violation of your rights, you have the right to lodge a complaint with the competent supervisory authority. Section 6. Modifications to privacy policy. Within the limits of applicable law, the company reserves the right to review and change this policy at any time. As long as you are using the services, you are responsible for regularly reviewing this privacy policy. Continued use of the services after such changes are performed shall constitute your consent to it. I know that last one was the same, I just wanted to say it again because it's so silly. Alright, the final document on the list is honestly the same as the last one, but with the word Lumo crammed in there instead. Since it's actually just the same, I will be skipping it, since there's nothing of any help in there. Now, let's review. Proton does not collect health data. They do collect purchase history, but only related to Proton products. This data is shared with payment processing companies that support Proton Wallet. They do collect financial data, which contains the last 4 of your card number and your name attached to that information. This data is shared with payment processing companies like PayPal, Chargebee, and Stripe. Location data is collected, but only course location via your IP address. Contact information is collected, such as your name and email, and this information is shared as well. Contacts is not mentioned in the policy. User content is collected for a variety of their services, and it is shared to do customer support. Search history did not come up in this policy. Browsing history is collected and would mostly contain things related to cookies and referral sites. Identifiers are collected and shared and include mostly account details and information about your device. Usage data is collected for analytics. Sensitive data did come up as your password when you're using their import function from another service. Diagnostics is collected for diagnostics. Other data came up as referral links and calendar events. Alright, that is it. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for policies I should read in the future, leave those in the comments below. If you like what I do here, consider supporting the channel over at patreon.com/rejectconvenience for just $1 a month. Peace.